Thank you so much,
Thank you.
um, Danielle, for
Is
being
is it
here.
Luca or
It is
Luca?
Luca.
Yeah,
It's
Luca.
Luca.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. How do you pronounce your name?
Danielle.
And it's Weber.
Well, some people say Danielle, but I think it's Danielle.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
actually don't know.
Australians pronounce it Danielle. So I thought I'd ask before I
To
mispronounce
be
it.
fair, I actually don't know.
But are you like super sensitive
Nah, I
when it
don't
comes to how
care.
you don't care?
Nah.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people are. But I think thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I really do appreciate
No,
it.
thank you for having me.
In my head, I'm just like, after reaching out to you and then doing my research, I'm just like, oh my goodness, she's been on like 50,000 podcasts already.
we
Why
love
is she still doing
we
this?
love talking. No, it's
So
good.
I think my first question is, how are you doing? Generally speaking, I think it's been a roller coaster of a year, I guess, from what I've
Yes.
gathered
Yes.
for your career. And how are you feeling now that the year's coming to an end? What have you gathered, and what are you looking forward to in the coming year?
Yeah, it's thank you for asking. Look, I think I had like a really crazy busy year, and then I almost had like a bit of a quiet period and then went into this crazy experience whirlwind, which I think when people see, highlights, they don't always believe that there's always lows, and there's a bit of a roller coaster that you're traveling on. So I got back probably 3 weeks ago, and I'm only just picking feeling like myself again, which is interesting. So look, I didn't rest enough, and I traveled 25 hours to New York and came back, and I didn't sleep for a couple of weeks, and they're like other forms of discipline that then take a lot out of your body and mind and soul. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to just getting some momentum back on murals and back in the studio. And I think next year is going to be a great year. So I think it's a great question to ask, and yeah, hopefully I answered that honestly, that it's
Yeah.
the highs are amazing, but it is definitely a roller coaster.
Yeah, I appreciate you being vulnerable and being open and being honest, because I think a lot of the time what we do get to see on social media, what we do get to see in the news and in the highlights and the front pages is the highs and not so much the lows. You know what I'm saying? So I think I find so much value in sitting down with creators and um, asking them these questions, and which allows people to also see them as human beings because they're kind of like amped up to being these super incredible people doing super incredible things, and not really understanding. I think for you kind of have built an intense fan base, and it can get to a point where people are just waiting for the next big thing. It's like, flip, I need to rest, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like,
yeah, and the pressure
mm,
that if you feel like you're not doing enough, you know, or even just people pushing and pulling, and I think, yeah, like you only can do so much, and I think that like if at the end of the day, like really the only person putting pressure on you is yourself. So I think you just learn to not listen to the external pressures too much, and just do what you can. So yeah, crazy.
it is crazy. And I think on that topic of external pressures, I think, like I mentioned, you've built an incredible fan base, an incredible following on social media, um, which is a positive thing. But I think what I've also noticed is that with growth and with more reach, you also tend to attract people who don't necessarily like what you're doing or aren't very supportive. You know what I'm saying? So have you experienced that with your work, and how have you navigated that space?
Definitely, but I don't like I always say just stay in your lane, and if someone has something negative to say, I wonder how they have, like, I know I don't have the capacity, or like I feel like I don't have enough hours in the day. So if someone has like taken the time out of their day to say something bad to me, I'm like, wow, how did they even have the time, like, or the capacity to do that? So I almost like I feel a bit of a sadness. 'Cause I'm like, that they're not feeling fulfilled in some way, shape, or form, that they feel like they have to message me and say, oh, this sucks. Like, what are you doing? And I think I just have a really neutral approach to, I've heard things like artists say things oh, she's commercial, like she actually doesn't know how to paint, and me, I'm just like, if people are creating, that makes me happy. I don't really care what they're doing as long as they're creating and doing something they love. Um, that that that's awesome. So I feel like I don't really like I do in all fairness, like out of all the press, Australian press and radio press I did in over the last few weeks, I had like maybe 2 or 3 really nasty messages sent in my DMs, and I just delete them straight away. And like I end up laughing because they literally have a conversation to themselves because like they're still sending messages through, and I'm just like deleting
Yeah.
all of them, laughing. I'm like, oh my god, they're dedicated to the cause. Like they're still going. They're literally just talking to
They're
themselves.
committed.
They're so committed. And even if I get negative comments, I just delete them. It's just, we only have so much energy, and I feel like if I can put my energy into something positive, there's so many people who send me beautiful messages that I maybe don't get time to respond to. So my attitude is if I give that 0.5% airtime, I'm doing a disservice to the people who are doing great things for me. So
Come now, I love that mentality.
yeah.
I appreciate that mentality so much, and I think you're right. We only have so many hours in the day. For them, spending their time doing that is quite sad, literally, really. And like you say, you kind of feel sad for them. Uh, you know what I'm saying? But on your part as well, it's like you only have so many hours in the day, and if you're like spending it focusing on the negative things instead of focusing on the positive things to lift you up, like you're saying, you're doing a disservice. I think on that topic of hours in a day, you've had a crazy couple of weeks, like you've already mentioned earlier. How are your days structured? Like, how do you make sure you get everything that needs to be done?
Look, that's something I'm still trying to figure out. I think for someone, I'm aware that like my mental health, I sometimes struggle. So I do believe routine is probably a better option for me, but it just is not realistic. Like from murals to prints to brand collaborations to running exhibitions to podcasts, no day looks the same. So I think I've come to terms with the fact that I like as much as I would try to structure some routine, it's never going to be what others maybe say is more appropriate for someone like me, especially someone who gets distracted. So to get everything done, I just write a million lists. If I kick off my day with not getting stuck in a social media rut or, um, you know, getting up in the morning and doing something for myself first before I do something for everyone else. I think that's a big way to start your day. Going to the gym, if I can't get that in, I make a really nice breakfast and enjoy some time to myself or, enjoy a cup of tea, enjoy the simple things. Um, and then I do just work really long hours. Like I got here at 8 o'clock yesterday and I've left at 8 o'clock. So it's generally 12-hour days. And look, if I feel like working, I work. If I feel like not doing anything, I generally try and listen and say, okay, tomorrow's a new day. Let's not push it. Because um I have learned that breaks are really important for productivity as well, because you end up not getting as much done if you don't take that hour break where you think you're wasting time. So um, yeah, I think breaks are really important. I tend to just go, 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 and then like have a couple of rest days, and then go, 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 and have a couple of rest days. So everything works for everyone differently. It's funny because I was laughing with my partner this morning. Everyone says, get your 8 hours sleep. And we've both had like 6 hours sleep the last few nights. And he texted me this morning. He's like, I know this sounds backwards, but let's have less sleep. And I'm like, we literally speak about resting all the time. And now we're saying don't have any sleep. So I think the key there is just listen to your body about how much you can put into a day and listen to your
Mm,
mind. Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think there's a lot of, I guess, world norms, or I guess the way society wants us to work. Like you just mentioned off camera that you got like 6 hours sleep, and I was like, what the heck? Is that
Yeah.
normal? And it's like,
Yeah.
but like you rightfully said, everything works differently for everybody, and what's important is to listen to your body. When you feel tired, take that time off, and I think sometimes, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I think sometimes working on a strict schedule that's like unfiltered and unchanged is very difficult, because we change as well as humans. You know what I'm saying? So who I was, 6 months ago is not who I am today. And what I'm busy with 6 months ago is not what I'm busy with today. So I need to be able to adjust and change. And listen to my body. But I think you also mentioned something very important in there was about like being anxious about stuff at times, and listening to your mind is also very important. You know what I'm saying? Um, and it's vital. And I think it's something that's probably not spoken about as much. And I think it's definitely getting more light now, which I'm really happy about. But I think for yourself personally, is there any particular link between your art, your work, and anxiety, and finding a release through your art?
Definitely. Look, I think
Mm.
I just took a photo of a piece this morning, and I've sort of decided to call it renaissance, or like rebirth. And I think I think my art used to be a lot more of an outlet, and then the more that, you put pressure on yourself to grow, sometimes you don't, because you're searching for something more, and then you sort of suppress that expression, or that flow, or that that, as you said, is it something that links with your anxiety and dealing with you know I guess your mind. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is, I think it was more of an outlet when I first started, and I think I'm itching to get back there. I want to feel how I felt when I was trying to figure it all out and not overthinking everything. I think the more we know is sometimes more dangerous, because you you know the more you progress, the more knowledge you have, the more I overthink things, I feel. So sometimes, it's like the innocence of a child. They don't know any better. So the freedom that they feel is so beautiful. Whereas as you grow older and your life becomes more complex and there's more avenues to take, I feel like that's when we start to doubt, what stemmed, or like what's how it all started. So I think that's something I'm figuring out as I go along, and I think I'll always be figuring it out. How to get back to that outlet. What else can I channel? Or do I try different mediums? Do I try different forms of expression? So I think that's something that people think you have figured out, but as you evolve, as you mentioned before, as you evolve and as you change as a person, that's always going to change too. And I think when we structure our life too much, or we have this plan, we get disappointed when things don't go our way.
Yeah,
So I
true.
think you need a happy medium between the two. But definitely finding the outlet is so important, and that will evolve too.
I appreciate that. And I think there's so much truth in what you've said, in that I think when we start off, there's kind of like this purity in what we're doing, this genuine passion for the art, whatever it is, whatever art form of art expression we're into. But ultimately, we also want to put food on the table and keep a roof over our head. So a commercial side to this thing does tend to come up, and it's a dream. It's a dream to be able to turn your passion into your work as well. But you can easily lose that aspect of that process uh, that separated you from the world, because you're trying to meet deadlines, you're trying to satisfy clients, and it becomes more of a project that allows you to become the best commercial version of yourself instead of the best expressive version of yourself, where none of them are terrible. I think there just needs to be a balance between the two. So like you're saying, it's something that takes time and probably never ends in terms of figuring it out. You need to constantly remind yourself, and I think have a good circle of people who can keep you grounded and keep you um, aware and awake of where you're at, and kind of navigating through that process. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's a huge point. I think that's definitely a huge point. But I'm very curious to know how you grew up. I think I've only just I haven't known you a long time, but all I've seen is you now grown up and blown up. That
Yeah,
rhymes.
I like that.
Grown up and blown up. But I'm very curious to know what your upbringing was like, what it was like growing up, where you grew up, and if there was any link at all in terms of art and expressive creativity in your upbringing that led you to this very point.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So look, I was very fortunate to grow up with a beautiful support network and a beautiful family. I was drawing probably from 2 or 3 years old. I would watch my brother and copy him and sit next to him and draw for hours on end. And then, not growing up wealthy, which is very like, an average family, and mum and dad worked really, really hard. There were some tough times there where dad's businesses went under. But I'm grateful for that because we didn't have, PlayStation. We didn't have any technology. We did have, a TV, and we were allowed, I think I was half an hour a day, whether that was like Tetris
Discipline.
on the black and white computer or the half an hour TV, we could choose.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so look, but mum was so proactive. It was always hands on. Like she'd have Play-Doh made, like she'd hand make her Play-Doh, or there'd be a cooking activity, and it was always hands on. Or like I'd be in the garden. I used to love gardening and I loved cooking. And I think I was 3 years old when mum got home and she found me on the bench and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm making a cake." And I'd literally made a cake from scratch, a chocolate cake from scratch with no recipe. Obviously, I was 3 years old.
Unreal. No
And the
way.
only thing I forgot was sugar. So, um,
But it was edible though.
yeah, apparently. Or maybe she just
At
tells
three
me that. Yeah,
years.
apparently.
What the heck?
Yeah. But I think it wasn't even like the food element. It was like getting my hands dirty and like doing things so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very lucky. And obviously I spent a lot of time with my grandparents being the youngest, and they had big veggie gardens. And I remember I just used to love going in the gardens, and I was so fascinated by animals and the outdoors. So I think that then stemmed into, obviously, I had a creative flair. That side of my brain was, I had that spark when I was younger. And then I started watercolor, which I was always encouraged to do anything, drawing watercolor. They got me the paints and things like that. And I started watercolor when I was 9. And then I started acrylic painting soon after that. So I was always painting. Then I went through a period in my teenage years, when I hung out with the wrong people and art wasn't really in my life at all. And then I sort of started painting late teens again. So I was a bit rebellious at school. And, they say art saves you. And I do believe it sort of brought me back, and I remembered where my roots were. So I think it's really, really beautiful. And yeah, I think the support, that's probably the biggest thing, is when people say, obviously I've done the hard work, but I've had so much support from my family, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them. So credit to them, definitely.
No, absolute shout out to the family for that. I think it's such a huge part of any individual success, creative or not. It's a steady support system, no matter where it's coming from, And I think it coming from the people you trust the most, like, it could either go really bad in them not believing in you, and then in turn you not believing in yourself, or it could go really well in them believing in you, and no matter what, you believe in yourself, no matter what the world says. If your family's got your back, then it's like, I've got every reason to keep going. So I think praise to them for that kind of support. And it's a beautiful story, honestly, to know where it comes from, your success and where you are now. It's such a beautiful thing to hear.
My mum would always paint, and I'd watch her, like she did like silk painting, and I'd watch her in awe. And like she says that she can't paint, but she definitely can. And my dad's a chef, so they're both very creative beings. So it's
And your siblings, are any of them
funny.
creative
My
as well?
brother, he's an engineer, and my sister's like she works for KPMG as in consultancy. And so
Sheesh.
it's very, very different. We're very different. I
Damn.
do believe like they're both creative in their own ways. And I think my brother, he's an unbelievable drawer. He sees things like he would leave me for dead. So interesting how we all end up in different paths.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I think you mentioned something very important there, is that they're all creative in their own way, and I think everybody is. I think as human beings, in our complexities, in our uniqueness, in our differences, we all have different perspectives and different viewpoints. And I highly believe that everyone has a creative aspect to them. I think it's just boils down to how motivated we are in finding that,
Yeah, how you
you
tap
know,
into it,
how
definitely.
you tap into it, and it's different for everybody, you know. So
100%.
I appreciate you saying that. I
Like
think
even
it's such a beautiful thing.
podcasts, I think that's a form of creativity. You have to, do your research.
I don't
It
know.
is, I 100% I argue this, like, you have to it's storytelling, and that is a craft in itself, and the research that you do, you're piecing stories together, the creativity and how you can angle it with everyone who this that is, I do believe everyone, shows a form of, in everything that we do. Definitely does.
I do think so, and that's what I'm trying to do. You mentioned storytelling there. That's what I'm trying to do, and I know it's it's difficult, and because it's such a quote unquote saturated market now, everybody's just hopping onto it. But I think that creative aspect comes in figuring out how can I make it different. You know, what can I say? What can I bring to the table that hasn't been done before? And like I was saying, I was watching or doing research into you, and it's like 50,000 podcasts. I'm like, surely, like, there's nothing she hasn't been asked before. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like,
I feel like
how,
we started it off very different, so it's beautiful.
yeah. So it's just like, how
Yeah.
can I make the experience different? So it's it is storytelling, and I hope as I continue to grow and meet new people, I can be able to bring out aspects of them that the world hasn't seen.
I think you're doing an amazing job.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you
How
so
much
much.
energy, I think people don't realize how much energy goes into podcasts and all the work behind the scenes work and the research and the hours of listening,
Yeah.
and yep, so credit to you.
Yeah, and I think for me, it definitely gives energy to me. I think it fuels me up. It definitely fuels me up being able to meet new people. But over and above meeting new people, I think it's learning from them. Because I think everybody I've met, big or small in their creative journey, have experienced so much in their life and have so much to offer. So I appreciate every single guest I've had. But I'm just curious, from you mentioning your brother being an engineer and I think your sister working in consultancy. Did you go to formal school? Did you study anything in particular?
Yes, I did. Yes. So I did a double degree in health sciences and arts.
Sheesh, we've got a
So
genius in the building.
I ended up going to university. I never wanted to, it was never my goal. And then I ended up doing quite well at school, and I was like, oh, maybe I should, you know, do something. And anyways, and I wanted to do health science. And then my parents were like, nope, where's your art? And I was like, I'm not going to make a living out of being an artist. But they did encourage me to do the double degree, which sort of kept me painting, and very black and white. Like it's two completely different degrees, but
Very
I enjoyed it.
different. Mm.
So
And yeah, you point out something interesting there, and you mentioned, oh, I really didn't want to do art because who really makes it as an artist? You know what I'm saying? So there is this kind of, I don't know if stigma is the right word, towards like being a creative person and actually earning a decent living as a creative. Um, so my question is like, what do you think? That was then, right? And you've obviously grown, and the world has changed. What do you think of the current space we are living in now in terms of that narrative, that perspective of being a creative and actually earning a living? You think it's changing? Do you think it's getting better, or do you think there's still more work to be done?
I I would love to say that we've advanced a lot in the last, let's say, 5, 10 years. Well, I'll say 10 years because that's how long I've been on this journey for. So, in terms of opportunity and in terms of the support that we have in the arts, I think it has advanced a lot. But in terms of the stigma that is still attached and the naivety that people have, whether that be in their approach to engage an artist or whether that be someone on the street, um, I can speak from firsthand that I know when I'm painting on the street, I have one nice comment and then 10 stupid questions. So, and that's, oh, what's your real job? Or, oh, do you just do this for fun? Oh, like, is this just your hobby? If I just give you my wall, can you just come and paint something? Um, and it's even people who have built business relationships for years. They'll call me up and say, hey, like, can you come and paint live? I'm like, yeah, cool, there's going to be a fee. And they're like, oh, no, we don't have budget. And I'm like, sorry, I didn't call you last week to work for free for a week. Like it's not, so that there still is a lot of that. It's frustrating at times and you do feel defeated. But in saying that, it's still adds fuel to my fire in a sense that I know we have a long way to go, and I want to change that narrative for creatives. And I think the only way we can do that is if we have these open conversations that, like, no, it's not okay for you to ask how much an artist earns, because you would never go up to anyone else and ask that. Or it's not okay to make passing comments on assumptions on what they do or don't earn, because in the normal day or in the normal jobs, your normal jobs, and put it in inverted commas, you would think twice about asking that. So I still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I believe that we have come a long way, but we definitely have a long way to go too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's an interesting space, and I'm very excited to see how it's going to change. I do think we've advanced as well, largely. Resources are readily available to people. I think another big thing back then was that getting into the space, having a studio, having paint, having paintbrushes, having a camera and a microphone to record a podcast was like expensive. It wasn't readily available for everybody, So I think access is like a huge thing, and that's available now.
Technology has
But I
been
think,
huge in that, and social media, and all the platforms that are advancing. But I think the opportunity is now, it's more accessible to the everyday, rather than that 1% or 5%.
yeah,
Definitely,
and I think another huge part of it, I think, is with us, and a lot of responsibility is with us, the creators, to prove to the world that it can
100%.
be done.
Yep, we've
You
got
know
to
what I'm
push
saying?
together, put
We got to
forward
push together.
collectively. Definitely.
You mentioned changing the narrative there, and I think you're doing a great job. You're, an exquisite example of how art and creativity can uh, be a real and genuine, like, career. And we appreciate you. We appreciate what it is that you're doing, um, not just on a global scale in terms of your art, but your willingness and readiness to sit down and give off this information.
No,
Like,
thank you.
there
No.
are plenty of things that you could be doing with your time right now, but
Well,
you
I just know that it is still, I still feel like it's a lonely journey, and I know how lonely it was when I was starting. So I think if I would have had few podcasts like this to sort of listen to, I'd be like, oh, okay, it's not just me, I can relate to that. Oh, okay, it's not just me that also goes through that. So I think it's just, putting your hand up and saying you're not alone in it, and that we all face these challenges and roadblocks, and yeah, I think we need to work together to push through them.
that's beautiful, and I appreciate that so much. But I mean, speaking of changing the narrative for yourself personally, how did you make yourself stand out? It's not every day that individuals get to work with people like The Rock and Steve Aoki and meet them in person. So what was it that you did that made you stand out and made people realize, oh no, we've got something special in the building, and we need to pay attention to this?
Yeah, it's funny because I still ask myself that question. I mean, I was sitting on the couch having a chat to The Rock a couple of weeks ago, in person, and I did ask him. I think you're the first person I've said that to. So I did say to him, I looked at him and I just laughed and I said, D. I literally said it like this. I'm like, how does it happen to me? That's what I said. And he just looked at me. I'm like, honestly though. And he's just like, he goes, the universe, he goes, you put in the hard work, like you've put in the years, like the energy that you put out is what comes back. And it's funny because it was a similar question I asked when I first met him. I was like, why did you, like, I know I'm not the best artist. I know that there's a million better artists than me. I'm like, why did you stop? And he's just like, you're smiling, like the energy, like you're always smiling. And there was just something about you being there with your work as well. So I guess that's a key message to people. Like, you actually don't have to be. And I had that conversation with him too. I said, I know I'm not the best. And he goes, well, you don't have to be the best. And I'm like, but I give everything that I touch like 110%. And I think that's a key message, that like, you don't have to be the best carpenter, the best plumber. If you are good at, like, believe in yourself as a person, you're raw, and that's what he says too. He was always himself. He's never changed who he was, no matter what people say, no matter what people think. If you're staying true to that, then things will come. It might take 10 years, it might take 20 years. But I think that's what has allowed me to, you know, come across and I guess be I'd say blessed, but like, yeah, these opportunities. I don't think I think, when preparation, what I say, when preparation meets opportunity, I think it's all the hard yards that you do and all those moments where you're like, I'm doing this for nothing. What am I doing this for? And then something like that comes about and you're like, okay, aha moment. And I said that to him. It's so much greater than, not that I don't think it's a big deal, but for me, I'm like, that's a really cool opportunity. That's insane. But I said it's more about the ripple effect, that showing people that anything is possible. I think it's the ripple effect that has on others that's huge.
No, it is huge.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think like you said, you don't have to be the best carpenter. You don't have to be the best artist. But I think what's standing out to me, what I was thinking when you were speaking is that this opportunity, or he could have stopped for any other artist, and I'm not saying that they wouldn't have done it, but I'm saying there's something in you, that goes beyond your art. And I think it's your capacity and willingness to give back to the community. I don't know if you see where I'm going with this. I'm like, so you've just been given this platform, you've just been given this opportunity, and how you're using it is not for self gain or self glory. It's like, I'm going on every podcast that I get an opportunity to go on. It's like, how many other people would have done that, So, and I think I've reached out to plenty of people who aren't even as big as you, but their not excuse, but their reason for not coming on is that they're busy. And fair and fine, people are busy, and I appreciate and understand that. No beef there, but it's like you
make time.
You make time. You make time. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
I think you're definitely a special individual, and I think The Rock was like right in what he was saying. It's just like, I don't know, blessed, hard work, and I think time and patience. It's very easy for people to see you now here where you are and be like, oh shucks, I want to get where she's at. But how long have you been doing this? Like, you haven't been doing this small time, right?
12 years.
That's a long time. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? That's a long time. So I think another huge lesson there is just like patience.
Patience.
And
even
commitment.
now I have to remind myself, patience. We are so, we're immune to like fast moving and instant gratification. And like, it's crazy. And even now I have to remind myself, my partner says all the time, he's like, patience, D, like, because you just want things to happen, and it just won't. And that's why I say to people too, when they're like, oh my God, your life must be so different since that happened the other week. And I'm like, what do you think has changed? Like, what do you actually think has changed? Like, I'm still doing the same things every day. What do you think, like $10 million ended up in my bank account, I'm going to retire everyone around me? Even if I did have $10 million, I'd still be doing the same thing every day. This is not what we find fulfillment in, is, it's not monetary. You don't start these things for monetary gain. So it's really interesting that sometimes people's perceptions are a bit skewed because of what they find, or what they see value in. So I sort of just have a laugh about it, but I'm like, oh yeah, no, I've just stopped what I'm doing. I'm done. Like, I'm
done with
good.
art.
One opportunity.
Cheers.
I think I can finish now. Like, it's, I think, no, that's we're good. So I think that's the reality of like what, we see on TV and in movies. You think you hit this like one thing and everyone's like, oh, they're done. They're good. Finished. So it's, you have to laugh.
Yeah. And I think it's beautiful and it's true. Like we mentioned earlier, it's we get into these things with such pure intention. It's an escape from the world, and I think this is one of the things that makes you different, and I think this is why you have this opportunity. It's why it came to you, because I definitely do think people are rewarded because their ability for self-control as well, you know. um obviously sometimes it doesn't always happen that way, but I definitely do think people with an ability to be self-controlled and stay grounded are, just they're just given plenty. They're just given plenty, because they don't squander it and they don't use it for self-gain and glory. It's always kind of like being able to give back. Doesn't always work like that, unfortunately, and I think we all know that. But I think
No, and I think
you're so
you're human too, you know?
we're human
Yeah.
too, and that's what I was going to say as well. Is like people assume that because it's like that's what everybody just wants, a quick fix and to retire. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's what makes you so special. Like I'm saying, I think I've said it like 10 times now. It's like, but it's so unique. It's so different, and I think it's a quality that everybody needs to adopt, or needs to learn from. And so I appreciate you sharing that. It's just like, um, on that topic, I'm not like, okay, if people are assuming that you've made it, you've peaked in their minds, it's like, oh, okay, she's made it. I'm thinking, my thought when I reached you initially is like, what's next? Like what more do you want? Because I highly believe like there's no cap to growth, maturity, and development. Like you can't cap it until you die. So like for you, what's next? What do you hope to achieve in the coming years?
What's next? It's interesting because usually I get all flustered and think that I need to do something huge off the back of, you know, um, but I'm cruising. I'm cruising. I'm in second gear at the moment. And I think for me, what's next is I'm just going to continue the smaller jobs that I was doing with murals and some of the bigger projects with brand collaborations on a bigger picture scale. Um, you know, linking back to saying that I want to change the narrative for creatives, I have been building an online course, which I'm still learning. And this is probably a bit of imposter syndrome and kicking in as well. But I feel like I'm learning so much every day that this course keeps changing, and I'm like, when is the right time to drop a course? Because there's always going to be more that I want to put in. So it's really interesting. So I'm building an online platform for artists and creatives so they can basically, it's getting hard to mentor people one-on-one directly. I find myself, answering questions for 2 hours a day, and I'm like, okay, then now I'm behind on my own things that I have to do, and you got to find that balance. So, hence, I want to build a platform to be able to collectively help a bigger group of creatives who want to jump on board and nurture that. And again, I didn't have that too, so I think it's beautiful to be able to provide something that I felt wasn't there when I was growing and learning. And I definitely, whether it be now or in 15 years time, I don't believe I've untapped my true potential when it comes to painting from my experience and painting my story now. I think it's time for me to start telling my story through work. But I've been storytelling other people's and connecting to my audience through people we can relate to and who've led incredible lives. And I think I need to get to that point where it's not even comfortable. It's like I feel like I have a few barriers up at the moment because there's so much that I want to do, and it's like, oh, what's priority? Um, so it's interesting. I don't know. I don't have a timeline. Obviously, there's some huge murals I want to do before I pack up that bag. I'm not giving myself a timeline, but I definitely don't think I'll be doing murals for the rest of my life. So there's lots in the pipeline, but I think they're more long term. Not so much goals, but projects that I want to see evolve and grow. Definitely.
We're excited to see it. I think we're probably not allowed to know what that is, which is all right.
We
But
we no, I can give you a bit of insight.
yeah, yeah.
We, as I mentioned the piece before, like that was an attempt to tap into it. I think I laugh about the fact that I've called myself a tomboy and that I'm a bit masculine in a lot of sense, anyone who knows me, and I think I need to tap into the feminine side because there's a lot of power within that. and I think I need to express that um, in whatever way that may look like. And I think I need to tap into that side. Definitely. And I think through that will come healing and dealing with trauma and triggers and everything as well.
No, we're definitely excited to see it. Um, the last week, it's crazy to say, but the last week I've known of your existence and been digging into your work. It's just absolutely exceptional. I, there's so much story in your art. It's not just a portrait, like it's not just a painting. There's so much context, I think, for people who really do take the time to stop and read what it is you're writing and read what it is you're trying to portray in your art. There's so much context and so much meaning. So your process is long-winded. You're not just sitting down taking a couple hours on a piece. You're really taking your time and really thinking about how best you can express what you're trying to express. So I'm really excited to see you try and tap into something else and try and figure out something else. And I know it's not going to be an easy process, obviously, just like learning anything new, but it's also exciting. And I think what's exciting about pushing your limits, pushing your boundaries, and getting out of your comfort zone, it's not only exciting for us who's receiving it, but it's also exciting for you because it's a new experience for yourself. So I'm excited for everybody involved. I'm excited for the art, I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for the people going to receive it as well. But we spoke a little bit about success and how it's kind of viewed differently and by a lot of different people. But for you, do you have a definition for what success is? Maybe as an artist, but I think maybe just generally speaking, do you have a definition for what that would look like?
Not really, because I used to think success was like one thing, or like, oh, you're successful now. But I don't. I believe that you can have like successful moments that shape your journey, but I don't believe in success as like a whole, if that makes sense.
Like a capping, like a limit, like a level,
Yes.
like 100%. Like
I was listening to an artist and he said, "Don't rest on your successes." And I like that because then I was like, oh, okay, so that's like one moment that we're not going to rest on. It's not success as a whole. So now I just don't even see, I don't like, not that it doesn't have an existence. I think you can have, as I said, successful moments, but I don't like who in your eyes is successful. I'm going to interpret that differently. So does it exist? Do you know what I mean? Like it's subjective as well, like similar to art. So that's an interesting one.
I
Can be
appreciate
debated.
that. That's huge. That's huge. That is huge. Like you can have moments of success, but success is not like a whole thing. Like a
Yeah,
I get what you're
agreed.
saying. Like it's huge. That's huge.
I hope that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And I've never heard it expressed that way. It's definitely like the first time, but it's definitely new to me. Because I think kind of starting off for myself in this project, I kind of have things that I'm looking at and I'm like, when I reach this or if I do this, then I'm like, I'm good, like I'm successful. I'm not saying that I'm stopping, but I think I've reached a level or a point where I'm like, kind of content, but which is dangerous as well. I think when I start looking at myself that way, I stop pushing myself, I stop growing, and I stop getting better.
Well, it's
So
complacency, isn't it?
exactly,
Really?
that's
Yeah.
the word.
And I guarantee you, like, some, I feel like people like us are wired very similarly. You will get to that stage where you think you're going to be content and you never will be.
And I think I start to think of like some of the biggest people who've ever done it, in terms of artists, musicians, entrepreneurs, business people. You see them continually doing more, opening a new business or starting a new project, onto the next movie, a new album, a new art exhibition. And it's like, but I thought the last one was like so big, but it's like you're never fully satisfied. And there's so much more expression to be shared with the world.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. And if I'm being completely honest, like I just had one of the biggest moments in my career.
mhm.
And I still went through a really down period after, which
That's
is
crazy.
wild
That's
to.
crazy.
I hate to say it because I don't want to like take away from, I'm not, it's not that I'm ungrateful, but that's a classic example that when you think you're gonna be on top of the world and you've gotten somewhere, and I know that now because I've been through that a fair few times. So, but it, I think you need to approach open-minded and know that it's not always sunshine and roses when you think you've hit your peak, if that makes sense.
No,
Because
that makes a
there's a
lot of
hole that
sense.
comes after that you feel like you need to fulfill more.
That makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
I think tying it back to people looking at you and be like, "Yo, so you're done now? Like, how's your life changed?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'm going through the most right now. If you'd like to know." But it's not like you're saying, you're not taking away from the moment and how grateful you are for it. But I think it's the reality of being a human being. you know, life around us doesn't stop moving. Um, you know, struggles don't just miraculously pause, or being sick, or whatever it is that's going on in your life doesn't stop because you've had one huge moment. You still need to navigate and deal with those things. Um, but like we mentioned earlier, it's just like being able to find a balance in uh, dealing with your low moments, but also like finding energy in your high moments and using that to boost yourself up and use that to propel you forward. So I appreciate your vulnerability so much.
No,
you
yeah,
know
I'm careful with what because
mm,
I know a lot of people want to experience something like that or be in that situation. So I definitely don't want to take away from that. But I think it is important to know that, you know, when sometimes we look at other people, you're like, oh, I want to get there. And when I get there, I'm going to be content. But I can tell them if you have that much drive and passion and purpose that you want to get there, I guarantee when you get there, you're still going to want more. So it's I think a good honest way to approach your journey.
we appreciate that. I think as humans, we are very difficult to please and satisfy. Very difficult to please
Yes,
and satisfy.
yes,
We're always going to need
very.
more.
Like, look
But
at The Rock, for example. Everyone's like, oh, why does he do so much? And I spoke to him, he doesn't sleep much and he's always working, and it's the same. We face the same things just on different
on
scales.
different scale, that's so big. That's so huge. Because I think I'm always thinking, and I'm constantly trying to learn not to think this way, but I want to be at so and so's level. I want my podcast game to be at so and so's level. I want my photography game to be in so and so's level. But funny enough, that individual is looking at the next person and they're like, "Oh, I wish I could be." And it's like, if we all tried to be like the next person, there would be no original content, there would be no uniqueness, and it'd be pretty sad world. So I think, like you say, we're all at different levels, we're all experiencing it differently. And it's just being able to, like you said at the beginning, stay in your lane. Like, that's a huge thing. I think it's just kind of said in passing, but there's so much value individually and for the rest of the world that can come out of just focusing on yourself and trying to be the best version of yourself every single day.
Exactly. Yeah. Unless you're taking like positive inspiration from, others, I think that's amazing. But like if you're not, and like you're worrying about what other people are doing and it's not fueling your tank, I think you need to, definitely stay in that lane and wait until you have the capacity to take to, shift that negative energy into a positive energy.
Mm.
Definitely.
Oh, speaking of inspiration, actually, it reminds me of the project you're working on, Luminary. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah. Please tell me more about that, because I'm very intrigued. I'm very interested to know what it is you're building there and where the inspiration for that came from.
So thanks for asking. Yeah, that Luminary is my third NFT collection. And Luminary is basically to inspire, to influence. You can say shine a light, in your darkest hours. And I think I wanted to honor, NFT space being a new space, I wanted to honor some great humans who
Oh,
have
Let's
faced,
go.
who had faced adversity, who had faced illness, disease, who have shaped, you know, human rights, civil rights, who have been activists in the hardest of times. And I think it's, and people are like, oh, but we haven't done that. And I think for me, it's more of a reminder to say, it doesn't matter what scale you're doing things, as long as I just want to inspire people to leave the world a better place and just to be great, um, and show them that you can be great no matter what adversities you come across. So I think, there was 11 physical artworks and then 11 NFTs of each artworks, in which I'm raffling the physical. So Einstein's minted out, or sold out, sorry, rather. And I still have a fair few other NFTs up for grabs. And anyone who is an NFT holder will get access to my course as well. And yeah, basically, I think it's just I'm just exploring a new space. I think no one's an expert in any field. And I wanted to honor some incredible humans who have inspired me. And hopefully, someone can connect to at least one of, those in the collection.
It's a beautiful collection. It's a beautiful project. I absolutely love it. And like, can we expect more of such projects in the future? More NFT type projects?
Definitely. Yes.
Mm.
I think I'm figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And I think the biggest thing for me was, bridging physical and digital, and staying true to my craft in that sense. And that's sort of why I didn't drop a 10,000 generative PFP project, because that's never been how I've sort of approached my work. And I was like, okay, let's not get caught up in that. Let's take 10 steps back, not look, there definitely will be more collections, I think.
And how long did it take you, or how long does it take you to create a full set like that?
Oh, I can't even explain how long this collection took.
Shucks.
So I worked on it for about a year in terms of the physicals, because they'd spent about 40 to 50 hours, and there's 11 of them.
Shucks.
So on each of them.
What?
And then I believe that I worked with my team, and I believe that we did about 10 to 15 rounds on every single one of them for the animations. And then obviously there's the mint page, there's all of the research and the descriptions written, and key dates, and then obviously all the content, because I wanted to express, what it meant to me, and really get behind to the forefront of the project and express that too. So we're talking thousands of hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge, and that's a lot. But you also dropped a little bit in there about having a team that you work with.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have full-time Alessandra who works for me. She works full-time. She's sort of operations. She does everything from helping with the projects to, we've got an exhibition on Friday, to running that, to dealing with print orders, dealing with clients. And I have an agent as well. And then I have a team of a couple of people who help with the NFT side of things. So yes, small team, but it's good. And my dad works with me on murals.
That's beautiful. A small team
Yeah.
indeed. And I think my comment there or question there is like, as a creative person, or as creative human beings, like I'm saying, everybody's creative. We all think differently and see things differently, and especially with very intricate forms of expression like art, music, poetry, or filmmaking. It's very different. It's very difficult to find people who think the way you think. So you've got this vision in your head every time you go to sleep, every time you wake up, it's developing, and then trying to convey that to people, and then having them help you bring it out exactly the way you want to is difficult. So were you always big on having a team, or it's something that you've had to learn that, oh snap, there's so much value in it, and then also the process of finding the best people to work with? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I basically I did everything on my own for the first 8 or so years.
That's crazy. Wow.
Obviously with some help from family here and there. And then I was represented by an agency for 3 years. And as much as they were great, I don't feel like they understood me as a creative. I got told that I charged too much for my work, and I was like, "Well, hang on a second. It's art and you're representing me, so you should believe in." Anyways, well, I got told that it was very expensive. So, and art is very subjective. So anyway, so I left that agency, and I was very grateful for what they did do for me in that time and the support that I was shown. So I don't want to take that away, but I that it's funny you said that. It's so hard to find people who understand, and I've worked with multiple people over the years where, you know, they to the core of it, they just don't get, how it works. And I don't so finally that my agent and Alessandra, like, they do understand, and they understand like the challenges, and that it's not all sunshine and roses, and they are trying to help me too, to like, to charge what you're worth, and to because if I don't do that, no one will for us. So standing up for all artists, basically. So yes, on that note, it's been so hard. I think it's okay to let go of people that you work with, and it's okay to you know work with a few different people and figure out that they're not for you. Some people think that it looks bad if you let someone go, or you work with different people. I think it's okay. Like, let's normalize that. Um, your team is a testament to how you hold yourself and how you treat people too. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate that. I appreciate that. They're definitely an extension of who you are. When you're not there in the studio and people rock up, it's them that represent, the brand. You know what I'm saying? So it's very critical. It's very important, like you're saying, to have the confidence to let go of who you need to let go and bring in who you need to bring in. And it's a very difficult, delicate process. That
definitely. And like my NFT team, Christian and Michael, who I work with closely, Collings, NFT, that, like, I am so particular. I did a million rounds of designs, and they're never like, "Oh, D, like, it's fine, just leave it. Like, no one else is going to notice." They will honor, everything I say and lift me up. And I think that patience is really important. Definitely. Or people just respecting your vision. So
love to shout out to them. Shout out to them
yeah,
for that. That
so
is
cool.
that is very beautiful. Yeah, but you've given me so much of your time already, and I really do appreciate it. I am about to wrap up. I know you've got a lot of other things to get to. I just have a couple more questions, and then we'll be done in like the next couple minutes. But yeah, I just want to say thank you. Really appreciate it. I've learned so much, and I'm looking forward to see you grow and continue to change the narrative.
Oh, thank you. No, it's so good to connect. Awesome.
Yeah. So my last question before we play a short game is I want to hear more about Paint and Sip Studio. What it is, what I find that very interesting. I'm always attracted to what's different, what's unique, things I've never heard of, things I've never seen, and seeing what inspired them and seeing what it is that those projects or those endeavors are trying to achieve.
So because you live in Newcastle, don't you?
I live in Newcastle.
So
Yeah.
you'd have there's a few around you. I think there's a Pinot Picasso near you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
There's.
yeah. So Melbourne, the boys approached me, or it would have been 2019, so 3 years ago now. And I just loved the concept. I know how people feel after painting. Alcohol involved or not, like, I know how, even if, I look at their piece, I'm like, that's, like, I know how proud I know how proud people feel when they create something.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, that, how it relates with mental health and how you feel after you've just expressed yourself in some way, shape, or form, aligned with me. And we my studio in Malvern was actually the first one that we opened in Melbourne. So I'm just a co-owner, and yeah, I think it's just a really cool concept, and I believe in it. And I think, obviously with COVID happening, we've had a lot to catch up on, and I feel like the wheels still aren't completely in motion, because there is a lot I want to do with, like, kids. And I think art therapy is a huge one too. And so there's a lot that I want to do with that. I think we just need to take it one step at a time. But it's amazing that, you know, I'm honored that the guys trusted me to join forces with them and have that space. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty fun. Food, alcohol, paint.
I think I need to make an effort to make a trip down to the one in Newcastle as well. I love I love when you say art therapy, like that's a thing, and I advise everybody to tap into that energy. But it's definitely a cool initiative, like very attractive, very different, very unique. And I love where it's going. It's just like, again, with everything that all these creatives are working on, I just wish nothing but the best and to see it grow and impact more people.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Thank you
So
so
kudos
much.
to you guys for that.
Thank you for giving us a platform to speak about it. So
Let's go. I love
takes
it.
two to
I love
tango.
it. It's my pleasure. But that's that, I think, from me in terms of like 4 more questions. I just have 5 other questions, which are would you rather questions. I just love to end off my podcast
Oh, I
on
love this.
little bit of a lighter note. Some of them get crazy, some of them aren't too crazy, but it's just like to see.
Oh, let's go. This is
what
cool.
you do.
Give me more
What
than
you
5.
do.
This is fun.
What you do
Don't worry
in a
about my
given
next
situation.
meeting. I like games.
Snap, you're gonna get me into trouble. They're just 5. Because obviously we've been speaking for like an hour, and I'd just like to keep it short and quick. But the first one is: would you rather have a bottomless gas tank or never be stuck in traffic again?
Never be stuck in traffic again.
Is the traffic in Melbourne bad?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Well,
I just think about how much more I can be doing when I'm stuck in traffic.
when you're stuck in traffic. But I'm also thinking about the amount of money you can save when you never have to buy petrol ever again.
Yeah, true.
You can only pick one though.
I just feel like no, definitely not stuck in traffic. I feel like it's sometimes I toot people and it's really rude and it turns me into a bit of a demon. Like Luke, my partner, I'm like the most patient person most of the time, but I get on the horn sometimes and it's really bad. So
you saying you're a patient person and then using
the
word horn
I
in the same sentence is like
I know, it's like it just brings out the devil in me. I don't like the person I become in the car, so we need to eliminate traffic.
Okay, so we're definitely eliminating traffic.
Yeah.
That's that for that one. The next one is: would you rather live by the beach or live in a cabin in the woods?
That's a really hard one.
Oof, yeah.
But I'm gonna say beach.
Why though?
There's something about because I love the green. My ideal situation would to live in like Mexico by the beach in the forest. Like that would be my ideal situation.
You're literally getting the best of both worlds.
Both worlds, yes. But if I had to choose, I would say beach. Just I think there's something about morning swims and the serenity in the water and what you feel when your feet are in the sand and the smell. And yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah.
I think I'd go for the woods.
Okay.
I think I'd go for the woods. I don't know.
Bring you some sand.
Bring you some sand and some water.
I love sun, so I love the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go for the beach. And then the third one is: would you rather have a great short-term memory or a great long-term memory? So if you have one, you have a terrible one for the other.
Long-term.
Why long-term?
Because I feel like there's a lot that like when you catch up with people and they remember stories like differently or like they remember things and it's just completely wiped from my memory. I would just love to sort of remember things that have happened years ago like more clearly, or the story just warps a little bit and I'm like, oh, I don't actually know what's right anymore.
I don't know. Yeah. That's actually not so bad. I mean, catching up with someone and actually remembering them is a good thing. Imagine meeting someone and they know you and then you're like, away from again?
I met you 5 minutes ago. True. True.
So it's, okay.
I'm gonna stick with long term because that'd just be funny. Short term. Sorry, I don't remember you. Oh god. That's funny.
Oh snap. Yeah. Okay, so long-term memory. I've got 2 more and we'll wrap it up. Would you rather own a wine farm or be able to travel the world for a year, all expenses paid? And it's
Travel
crazy. You talk.
travel the world for a year because I feel like I'll have a wine farm when I'm older.
Ah, hey, you're tricking the game here.
Like, I feel like wine is something that I'm like, it'll just be a part of my life. Like, I feel like because I collect now, and I feel like I'll
Mm,
make wine later in life. So I think definitely travel for a year, all
travel the
expenses paid, and then I'll learn more about wine.
out of interest sake. Where would you go first? What's your first destination?
Africa.
Oh, place is beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that place is beautiful.
Where's your accent? Are you South African?
No, I'm not South African. I'm Zimbabwe.
Okay.
But I did stay in South Africa for like the last 3
because
years.
your accent is very what's the this is like, I hope I'm not like Afrikaans. Where's
Yes, a lot of
yeah.
people. Yeah. A lot of people who come from Zimbabwe.
Yes.
A lot of people assume like you're not the first person to think I'm from South
Okay.
Africa.
Yeah,
I've had
sorry,
like
I don't know
5
if I didn't
people.
offend you, but like it's very
Yeah.
much like Afrikaans accent. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's
But
yeah, that's interesting. Love. Oh, I want to go to Zim. That's my dream.
beautiful place. Start with Vic Falls. Start with Victoria Falls.
Oh my god.
If you're ever going to, let me just.
I
put
had a
that up
trip
there.
booked to do Kilimanjaro
Oh,
and a few other really cool adventures. And I was
don't tell
going
me
for 6
COVID.
weeks.
Don't
COVID,
tell me it was COVID.
had my
Oh
bags
my
packed,
days.
shut the borders the day before I left.
Oh my days.
Yeah.
But what would you have rather happened? The borders shut before you left, or the borders shut after you leave?
I would love to get stuck in Africa and just travel for years. I mean, I think it would have been a logistical nightmare to try and So I shouldn't joke about that because people actually did get stuck in places and couldn't get out.
That is true.
I shouldn't joke, but someone's like, "What if you get stuck?" I'm like, "That sounds great to me." But
would it be so bad? Would it be so bad to be stuck in Africa?
Yeah, no. But in all fairness, like it was a horrible time for a lot of people.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I shouldn't joke about that.
Okay, so Africa is definitely your first destination, and
100%.
you're picking all expenses paid travel over
Yes,
a wine farm.
and then you can come and show me around. Do you have lots of family in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, I've got all my family, most of my family. I've got my sister here.
Yep.
And my aunt here, and then my youngest sister, my parents, my grandparents, cousins. Oh,
They're all
everybody's back
there.
home.
Oh,
Everybody's back home.
Are you going back? I
miss
know,
them.
sorry, but are you going back anytime soon?
Not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime next year.
Awesome.
I'm just trying to settle in. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I've been here for a year, but I'm still settling in. But
It's really funny
nah.
because I didn't notice your accent until like a while in. So like your English is like perfect, and you sound like you have your accent's very Australian. Like we rubbed off on you already.
No way!
Yeah.
No way!
No, I only didn't notice it until like when we sent voice memos. I don't think I noticed it. So it's interesting.
Did I sound Australian in the voice memos?
Yeah.
Oh shucks.
Yeah. Like I thought that maybe you were from Adelaide because people in Adelaide have like a bit of like a British accent.
Oh shucks.
Yeah, it's good. So it's interesting.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. Kudos to you. That's awesome. That's impressive. That's impressive. Because my dad's been in Australia for 40 years, and he still has the thickest accent.
Where's he from?
Switzerland.
Shucks. That is pretty cool. I'd like to go to Switzerland.
Mm.
Okay, you know what? I'm drifting.
Sorry, that's
I've
me.
got
I love tangents.
I love it. Okay, one more question and then we can let you go. Would you rather never get a flu again or be the winner of the Melbourne Cup?
Never get a flu again.
Yo. I thought the Melbourne Cup was huge, like.
Nah, I don't really care about it. That's really bad. That sounds really bad.
Oh, that's crazy. Because where I work, we had an off day for the Melbourne Cup. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, same. Yeah, we did too. Sorry. You know what? I worked, so it's not as if I took advantage. I worked.
Oh.
I don't get sick often, but I feel like if I knew that I wouldn't get the flu, that's good. because then you can't
Yeah.
pass it on to other people too, you know?
You can't pass it on to other people.
Mm.
Shucks, that was not satisfying. That last one was not satisfying. She
I'm
just
sorry.
doesn't care about the Melbourne Cup.
Not that I don't care. It's just that
Oh man.
I feel like I would be, if I won the Melbourne Cup, I wouldn't care as much as other people, and I think that's rude.
I think next time
Similar to my tooting.
next time we have you on the podcast, I'll structure those ones very differently.
Okay. Noted.
But it's been an absolute pleasure, Danielle. Thank you so much
No, thank
for taking
you.
time out and being on the podcast. This podcast is nothing without people like you who take time out of their schedule to sit down and chat with us. So great pleasure and honor.
No, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I was sitting and you were like, you were saying, oh, I was just sitting there looking at the rock and I was like, how do these things happen to me? And I'm sitting here and I'm like, how do these things happen to me?
It's so, see, it's all the same. It's just on different, like,
different
weird,
different levels. Yeah,
it's
different
so,
levels, different perspectives. Like I've been telling everybody, like, I'm sitting down with Danielle Weber, guys. Like, yeah,
oh
you don't
God.
even know. You don't even know. So this is huge for me and I appreciate it.
No, thank you. That means a lot.